High Commander Vexathera stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. His blue skin gleamed under the soft lights as he studied the tactical display. For over 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy. They had conquered 847 star systems without losing a single battle. The Zephyrians were not alone in their empire. 2 other alien races served under their command. The Korth were massive creatures with thick, armor-like skin, who handled heavy weapons. The Volani were small and quick, perfect for reconnaissance and sabotage. Together, these 3 races had built the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. "Commander," said his aide, a young Zephyrian named Jexhol, "we have detected a new species at the edge of our territory." Vexathera turned his attention to the report. His long, thin fingers moved across the control panel as he reviewed the data. The new species called themselves humans. They had just developed faster than light travel and were exploring space in primitive vessels. "How primitive are they?" Vexathera asked. "Very primitive, sir. They still use kinetic weapons that fire metal projectiles. Their ships are powered by nuclear reactors. They have no energy shields or plasma weapons." Vexathera almost laughed. Every civilized species in the galaxy used energy weapons, plasma cannons, laser arrays, particle beams. These were the tools of proper warfare. Metal projectiles were something from the ancient past. Meanwhile, far from the Zephyrian flagship, Captain Jake Morrison was having the best day of his life. He commanded the exploration vessel Horizon's Edge, and today his crew had made first contact with alien life. The ship was small compared to military vessels, with a crew of only 30 people. But they were making history. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from the alien vessel," said Lieutenant Beth Carter from the communications station. Jake nodded. "Put it on screen, Beth." The alien that appeared was tall and thin, with blue skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, the ship's computer translated its words into English. "I am Sub-Commander Kextar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your species is now under our protection. You will submit to imperial rule and follow our laws. This is not a request." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was not how he had imagined first contact would go. He had hoped for peaceful exchange of knowledge and culture, not demands for surrender. "Sub-Commander, I'm Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. We're explorers, not conquerors. We'd like to establish diplomatic relations between our peoples." The alien's expression changed. Its large eyes seemed to grow even larger with what looked like amusement. "Diplomatic relations?" "You misunderstand your position, human. Your species has 2 choices. Submit to the Empire or be destroyed. We give you this choice because we are civilized." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew stared back at him with worried faces. Chief Engineer Danny Brooks shook his head slightly. "Navigator." Susan Price was already calculating jump coordinates back to Earth. "We need time to consult with our government," Jake said carefully. The alien made a sound that the computer translated as laughter. "You may have one of your weeks to decide. But understand this. Resistance is pointless. We have studied your species. Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are slow and weak. You have never faced an enemy like us." The transmission ended, leaving Jake's bridge in silence. Back on the Zephyrian ship, Sub-Commander Kexatar was reporting to his superiors. The transmission reached High Commander Vexathera within hours. "The humans want time to think," Kexatar reported. "They seem to believe they have a choice in the matter." Vexathera studied the data his scouts had gathered about humanity. What he saw confirmed his expectations. Humans were a young species that had only recently left their home planet. They fought with bullets and bombs. Their soldiers wore metal armor and carried rifles that fired pieces of metal. Some of them even fought with knives attached to their rifles. "They fight like animals," Vexithara muttered. "Look at this footage from their planet." The recordings showed human conflicts throughout their history. Humans throwing themselves at enemy positions with complete disregard for their own safety. Soldiers charging across open ground while being shot at. Warriors fighting with swords. And spears in brutal hand-to-hand combat. "Barbaric," said Strategic Marshal Kethmore, who had joined the briefing. "No wonder they haven't advanced beyond kinetic weapons. They're too primitive to understand proper warfare." Vexithara nodded. Proper warfare was conducted with precise energy weapons at long range. Battles were won through superior technology and tactical formations. The strongest shields and most powerful plasma cannons decided victory. It was clean and efficient. "How should we handle them, Commander?" Kethmore asked. "Assign a junior fleet commander to deal with them. This will be good training for our younger officers. The humans will surrender once they see our technology in action." Meanwhile, on Earth, Jake's report was causing chaos in government buildings around the world. President Helen Davis called an emergency meeting of world leaders. General Pete Williams, head of Earth Defense Command, tried to explain what they were facing. "The aliens have technology far beyond ours," Williams said. "Their ships are faster and more heavily armed, but we don't know how many ships they have or what their full capabilities are." "What are our options?" asked President Davis. "We can try to negotiate, or we can prepare for war." Most of the world leaders wanted to negotiate. They believed that advanced aliens would be reasonable. Surely beings capable of traveling between stars would be peaceful and wise. But some military commanders disagreed. Colonel Lisa Martinez, stationed at Luna Base on the Moon, had been tracking alien movements for days. She had detected dozens of ships gathering at the edge of the solar system. "They're not here to talk," she told anyone who would listen. "This is an invasion fleet." At a military training base in Colorado, Marine Sergeant Tony Rodriguez was teaching new recruits how to fight in close quarters. He showed them how to use knives, how to fight with their hands, and how to survive when everything went wrong. "Modern weapons are great," he told his students, "but sometimes you run out of bullets. Sometimes your fancy equipment breaks. When that happens, you need to know how to fight like your ancestors did." The young Marines laughed at the old-fashioned training. They had advanced weapons and armor. They would never need to fight with knives or their bare hands. Tony didn't laugh. He had a feeling that very soon these skills would be more important than any high-tech weapon. The week passed quickly. When time was up, Captain Jake Morrison sent humanity's answer to the aliens. Earth would not surrender. They wanted peace, but they would defend themselves if attacked. High Commander Vexithara received the message with the same amusement he might feel watching children playing war games. Humans thought they could fight the Empire. It would be educational for them to learn otherwise. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Make it quick and clean. We have real wars to fight elsewhere." The Zephyrian fleet moved toward Earth, confident in their certain victory. The Zephyrian War Council met in a massive chamber aboard their command ship. Strategic Marshal Kethmore activated the holographic display that showed everything they had learned about humanity. The blue light cast strange shadows on the faces of the alien commanders gathered around the table. "Observe their weapons," Kethmore said, pointing to images of human soldiers. "They carry devices that propel metal fragments using chemical explosions. Some of their weapons require the soldier to manually operate a mechanism between each shot. The assembled officers made sounds of disgust and amusement. Commander Zolthi, a veteran of many campaigns, shook his head. I have seen primitive species before. But this is beyond primitive. This is ancient. The display showed footage of human military exercises. Soldiers crawled through mud while carrying heavy packs. They practiced fighting with knives attached to their rifles. Some training involved hand-to-hand combat where humans would grapple and strike each other with their bare hands. Look at this, Kethmore continued. They train their soldiers to fight without weapons. They prepare for combat where they must engage the enemy at arm's length. The alien officers found this concept horrifying. Civilized warfare was conducted at great distances. Energy weapons could kill enemies from miles away. The idea of fighting close enough to touch your opponent was revolting. How can they hit anything with such crude weapons? Asked Sub-Commander Velnox. They compensate with volume, Kethmore replied. Watch this battle footage from their recent history. The hologram showed a human conflict from Earth's past. Thousands of soldiers fired their weapons simultaneously, creating a wall of metal projectiles. The noise was deafening even through the recording. Wasteful and inefficient, commented High Commander Vexithara as he entered the chamber. One plasma cannon could accomplish what 100 of their soldiers cannot. Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, Colonel Lisa Martinez was studying the same recordings from a different perspective. Her team at Luna Base had been monitoring alien transmissions for weeks. They had managed to decode some of the alien communications and steal fragments of their technical data. They think we're stupid, she told her communications officer, Lieutenant Ray Foster. They're talking about us like we're cavemen who just discovered fire. Ray looked at the translated alien messages. Maybe that's good for us. If they underestimate us, they might make mistakes. Lisa nodded, but she was worried about more than alien arrogance. The technical data they had intercepted showed weapons and defenses far beyond human capability. The aliens had energy shields that could stop any projectile. Their weapons could destroy a building with a single shot. Ray, send a priority message to Earth Defense Command. Tell General Williams that the aliens are planning something big. I'm detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of our solar system. On Earth, General Pete Williams was having his own problems. Politicians kept asking him questions he couldn't answer. How many alien ships were there? What were their exact capabilities? How long could Earth hold out in a war? We don't know enough, he told President Davis during their daily briefing. Our best estimate is that they have at least 50 ships, each one more powerful than anything in our fleet. President Davis looked tired. The stress of potential alien invasion was wearing on everyone in government. What about our defenses? We have 17 ships capable of space combat. Our orbital defense platforms might slow them down, but they won't stop a determined attack. Our real strength is on the ground. We have millions of trained soldiers and well-equipped armies. What neither the president nor the general realized was that ground forces might matter more than anyone expected. At Quantico Marine Base, Sergeant Tony Rodriguez was pushing his recruits harder than ever. Word had come down from command that all training was to be accelerated. The new Marines needed to be ready for combat immediately. Listen up, Tony told his class of 30 young men and women. Forget everything you think you know about modern warfare. The enemy we're facing has better technology than us. That means we need to be better soldiers than them. Private Mike Chen raised his hand. Sergeant, how do we fight someone with better weapons? Tony smiled grimly. Same way humans have always fought. We get closer. We use the terrain. We make them come to us on our terms. He led them through exercises that seemed almost medieval. How to fight in tunnels and buildings. How to set traps and ambushes. How to keep fighting when wounded and outnumbered. The fancy weapons don't work so well when you're fighting in a basement, Tony explained. Big energy cannons are useless, in close quarters. That's when training and determination matter more than technology. Back in space, the Zephyrian fleet was completing its preparations. High Commander Vexthera had assigned the human mission to Fleet Commander Yixdal, a relatively young officer who needed experience in real combat. Remember, Vexthera told him, this is a training exercise more than a real battle. The humans cannot possibly resist for more than a few hours. Use it as an opportunity to test our new attack formations. Yixdal was honored to lead his first independent mission. He had studied the human defenses and found them laughably weak. Their ships were slow and carried primitive weapons. Their orbital platforms were stationary targets that could be destroyed easily. Sir, should we offer them another chance to surrender? Asked his tactical officer. No, Yixdal replied. High Command wants this finished quickly. We will demonstrate superior firepower and accept their surrender afterward. The alien fleet had 43 ships, each one armed with plasma cannons and protected by energy shields. They carried smaller fighter craft and specialized assault vessels. It was enough firepower to destroy a small planet, but they were not planning to destroy Earth. The Empire needed new worlds for colonization. They would eliminate human military forces and then accept the surrender of the surviving population. Engineer Katie Bell was working frantically in her laboratory at the Lunar Research Station. She had been studying the alien technology fragments that Colonel Martinez's team had captured. What she found was both amazing and terrifying. Their energy shields work by deflecting incoming projectiles, she explained to her assistant, Dr. Carl Stevens. But the deflection pattern is predictable. If we could time our shots correctly, we might be able to find gaps in their defense. Carl looked skeptical. Even if we could hit them, our weapons don't have enough power to damage their ships. Katie smiled and pointed to her computer screen. That's where you're wrong. Look at this analysis of their hull materials. The alien ships were built to resist energy weapons, not kinetic projectiles. Their hulls were designed to absorb and dissipate heat from plasma cannons and laser arrays, but they were actually vulnerable to physical impact from high-velocity objects. It's like they've never fought anyone who still used bullets, Katie said excitedly. Their entire defensive system is built around stopping the wrong kind of weapons. Meanwhile, the aliens were making final preparations for their attack. Strategic, Marshal Cathamore reviewed the battle plan one more time. It was simple and elegant. A simultaneous strike on all major human military installations. The humans will surrender once they realize resistance is futile, he told the assembled fleet commanders. This species has never faced truly superior technology. They will be shocked into submission. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had faced superior technology many times throughout their history. They had learned to adapt, improvise, and overcome. These lessons were about to be tested on a galactic scale. Captain Jake Morrison received new orders from Earth Defense Command. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, was to join the defense fleet forming near Mars. It wasn't much of a fleet, just 17. Ships carrying nuclear missiles and kinetic weapons that seemed ancient compared to alien technology. Captain, said his navigator, Susan Price, we're outgunned and outnumbered. This is going to be suicide. Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were scared, but they were ready to fight. Maybe so, Susan. But we're going to make them work for it. The stage was set for a battle that would surprise everyone involved. The attack began at dawn on Earth, though in space there was no real dawn or night. Fleet Commander Yixdal gave the order, and 43 alien ships opened fire on human positions throughout the solar system. The orbital defense platforms around Earth lasted exactly 12 minutes. Their armor, designed to stop human weapons, melted like ice under the focused beams of Zephyrian plasma cannons. The beautiful structures that had taken years to build became expanding clouds of glowing debris. All platforms destroyed, reported the tactical officer. Human resistance eliminated. Yixdal nodded with satisfaction. The battle was proceeding exactly as predicted. The human ships near Mars were fleeing back toward Earth, unable to match Zephyrian speed or firepower. But something was wrong with the human retreat. Instead of running to the outer system where they might escape, they were falling back toward Earth itself. Yixdal puzzled over this tactical decision. Running toward your own planet when being pursued was the action of either cowards or madmen. He would soon learn which one humans were. On Earth, the situation looked desperate from every viewpoint. General Pete Williams watched the tactical displays in his command bunker beneath Colorado. Red symbols showed alien ships advancing on every front. His own forces were scattered and outgunned. "Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from several military commanders," reported his aide, Major Alex Turner. "Denied," Williams said immediately. "Send the fallback signal to all units. Implement Protocol 7. Major Turner looked surprised. Protocol 7 was theoretical, a last resort plan for fighting an enemy with overwhelming technological superiority. It had been developed during the Cold War for fighting a nuclear-armed opponent, but it was about to be tested against aliens. "Sir, Protocol 7 assumes we'll be fighting on our own territory with support from civilian populations. Are you sure?" Williams looked at the screens showing alien ships entering Earth's atmosphere. "Major, we're about to find out if humans are as good at fighting as we think we are. Commander Amy Foster was in charge of defending the Denver military complex when the aliens arrived. She watched from the command center as 3 Zephyrian assault ships descended toward her base like falling stars. The first plasma beam hit the main barracks, turning the building into a pillar of fire. The second beam destroyed the vehicle depot, taking out dozens of tanks and trucks. The third beam targeted the command center itself. "All personnel to underground positions," Amy ordered, as the ceiling began to collapse. "Implement defensive pattern, Charlie." What the aliens didn't know was that the obvious targets they were destroying were decoys. The real command center was buried 50 feet underground in a bunker designed to survive nuclear war. Most of the base's critical equipment had been moved to similar underground positions over the past week. As Zephyrian ground forces landed near the burning ruins, they expected to accept the surrender of defeated humans. Instead, they found themselves under attack from positions they didn't know existed. Marine Sergeant Tony Rodriguez had been waiting in a concealed bunker with 20 of his best soldiers. When the alien infantry approached the destroyed barracks, he gave the signal to attack. "Remember your training," he whispered into his radio. "Get close and stay low." The Zephyrians carried energy weapons that could kill a human instantly at long range, but Tony's Marines didn't fight at long range. They crawled through drainage tunnels and emerged from manholes directly beneath the alien formation. The first alien died with a knife between his ribs before he knew humans were nearby. The second fell to a shotgun blast at point-blank range. By the time the aliens realized they were under attack, half their unit was dead or wounded. The Zephyrians had trained for many kinds of combat, but they had never prepared for enemies, who would crawl through sewers to stab them with metal blades. Their advanced weapons were useless when humans were grappling with them hand to hand. "Fall back to the ship," ordered the alien squad leader. But there was nowhere to fall back to. Humans seemed to be emerging from every hole and shadow. Tony watched 3 aliens running toward their landing craft. He pulled the pin from a grenade and threw it with the skill learned from years of practice. The explosion destroyed the alien ship's boarding ramp, trapping the survivors on hostile ground. In space, Captain Jake Morrison was having his own problems. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, was part of a small fleet trying to slow down the alien advance. Nuclear missiles and kinetic projectiles seemed to bounce harmlessly off the energy shields protecting the Zephyrian vessels. "Captain, we can't even—" "Scratch their paint," reported his weapons officer, Lieutenant Danny Brooks. Jake studied the tactical display, looking for any advantage. The alien ships were faster and more heavily armed, but they were also predictable. They maintained perfect formations and followed textbook attack patterns. "Danny, load all remaining nuclear missiles. Susan, set course directly for the lead alien ship." Navigator Susan Price looked shocked. "Sir, that's suicide. Their plasma cannons will destroy us before we get close." "Maybe," Jake said. "But I'm betting they don't expect anyone to be crazy enough to try it." The Horizon's Edge turned toward the alien fleet and accelerated to maximum speed. Plasma beams reached out to destroy the small human ship, but Jake was flying like no civilized pilot would. He rolled and twisted his vessel in seemingly random patterns, making it impossible for the aliens to get a clean shot. "What is that human doing?" asked Fleet Commander Yixdal as he watched the erratic approach. "He appears to be attempting a ramming attack," replied his tactical officer. "Should we concentrate fire to destroy him?" Yixdal hesitated. Ramming attacks were mentioned in ancient military texts, but no civilized species had attempted such. A thing in over 1,000 years. It was the tactic of primitives and barbarians. That moment of hesitation saved Jake's life and doomed the alien ship. The Horizon's Edge slammed into the Zephyrian vessel's shield generator at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of nuclear fire, but the aliens' main fleet suddenly found itself vulnerable to human weapons. "Impossible," whispered Yixdal as kinetic projectiles from human ships began punching through his hulls. Back on Earth, Commander Amy Foster was coordinating a defense that defied every rule of modern warfare. Instead of holding fixed positions, her forces were scattered throughout the city. Every building became a potential fortress. Every tunnel system became a highway for rapid movement. The aliens had taken the military base, but they hadn't taken Denver. Humans were fighting from hospitals, schools, shopping centers, and subway stations. Office workers threw grenades from skyscraper windows. Police officers used their knowledge of the city to set up ambushes in unexpected locations. "They're everywhere," reported a Zephyrian ground commander to his ship. "We control the military installation, but the humans refuse to acknowledge defeat." From her underground command post, Amy could hear the sounds of battle echoing through the city above. Her forces were taking heavy casualties, but they were also learning. Every engagement taught them more about alien weapons and tactics. "Major Turner, what's our status?" she asked. "We've lost 60% of our regular forces, but civilian militia units are still coming online. The aliens control maybe 10% of the city, and they're having to fight for every block." Amy smiled grimly. "Send word to General Williams. Denver is still in human hands." Similar reports were coming in from battles around the world. The aliens had destroyed obvious military targets with ease, but they were discovering that humans didn't keep all their important assets in obvious places. In London, aliens found that the real command center was in World War II tunnels that didn't appear on any modern map. In Tokyo, human forces used the massive subway system to appear behind alien lines without warning. In New York, fighters operated from the extensive basement networks that connected every major building. Engineer Katie Bell was working frantically in her hidden laboratory to give human forces any advantage she could find. She had managed to modify several human weapons to penetrate alien shields by timing their firing sequence to exploit gaps in the energy barriers. "Dr. Stevens, try this on the test target," she said, handing him a modified rifle. Carl aimed at the captured alien shield generator they had been using for experiments. When he pulled the trigger, the bullet passed through the energy field and struck the device behind it. "It works," he said excitedly. "How many of these can you make?" "Not enough," Katie replied honestly. "But maybe enough to matter." As the first day of the war ended, both sides were surprised by what they had learned. The aliens had expected quick victory and found stubborn resistance. The humans had expected rapid defeat and found they could hurt their enemies. Fleet Commander Yixdal sent his report to High Command with growing unease. The humans were not fighting like any civilized species. They seemed to prefer close combat to long-range warfare. They used their own urban areas as battlefields. Most disturbing of all, they appeared to be learning and adapting with frightening speed. "Request immediate reinforcements," he concluded his message. "The human species may require more resources to defeat than originally estimated." 2 weeks into the war, engineer Katie Bell had turned her laboratory into something that looked like a medieval blacksmith shop crossed with a space-age factory. Captured alien technology lay scattered across workbenches next to human tools and weapons. Sparks flew as she welded human bullets to alien power cells. "This should work," she told her assistant, Dr. Carl Stevens, holding up a modified rifle. "I've managed to sync the firing mechanism with their shield frequency. The bullet should pass through just as their energy barrier resets." Carl looked at the hybrid weapon with amazement. "Katie, you've essentially created a new type of projectile weapon in 2 weeks. It took our species centuries to develop firearms." "Yeah, well, we didn't have aliens shooting at us for most of those centuries," Katie replied, testing the weapon's electronic components. "Necessity is a great motivator." What Katie didn't know was that her innovations were being copied by engineers and mechanics around the world. Human ingenuity was adapting alien technology faster than the aliens themselves had believed possible. In New York City, Major Alex Turner was leading his unit through the subway tunnels beneath Manhattan. 3 days earlier, he had been a regular Army officer defending a military base. Now he was running an urban guerrilla campaign that would have impressed resistance fighters throughout human history. "Turner to all units," he spoke into his radio. "Enemy patrol approaching Grand Central from the north. Units 3 and 7 move to intercept. Unit 5, prepare to cut off their retreat." The Zephyrian ground forces had superior weapons and armor, but they were fighting in an environment designed by humans for humans. The subway system was a maze of tunnels, service corridors, and abandoned sections that existed on no alien map. "They're learning the city layout," reported Sergeant Lisa Park, one of Turner's squad leaders. "Each patrol gets a little bit better at predicting our movements. Then we change our movements," Turner replied. "Remember, we know this place better than they do. We grew up here. They're just visiting." Turner's strategy was simple but effective. Instead of trying to hold territory, his forces would hit alien patrols, and disappear back into the tunnels. They would strike from unexpected directions and vanish before the aliens could respond effectively. The aliens were discovering that human cities were far more complex than they had realized. What looked like simple buildings from the air were actually interconnected networks of basements, service tunnels, and hidden passages. Humans could move through their own urban areas almost invisibly. Across the city, similar battles were being fought by police officers, firefighters, construction workers, and ordinary citizens who knew every alley and rooftop in their neighborhoods. The aliens controlled the main streets, but humans owned everything else. Meanwhile, in space, the balance of power was slowly shifting. Captain Jake Morrison had died in his ramming attack, but his sacrifice had shown other human commanders that alien ships were vulnerable to unconventional tactics. Captain Jane Cooper now commanded the remaining human fleet from her ship, the Defiance. She had been studying alien movement patterns and found something interesting. "They fight like they're in a parade," she told her tactical officer, Lieutenant Rick Barnes. "Perfect formations, textbook maneuvers, everything by the book." "Is that bad for us?" Rick asked. "It's predictable," Jane replied. "Watch this." She had set up a trap using 3 human ships as bait. The aliens would see what appeared to be easy targets and move to attack them using standard fleet tactics. But Jane had positioned her remaining ships where the aliens would be after they completed their attack formation. "All ships, execute Phoenix Protocol," she ordered. The human ships that had been acting as bait suddenly accelerated toward the alien fleet instead of away from it. At the same time, Jane's hidden ships opened fire from the flanks. The aliens found themselves caught in a crossfire they hadn't expected. 2 Zephyrian ships were destroyed before Fleet Commander Yixdal could react. His perfect formation had become a perfect target. "How did they know where we would be?" demanded his tactical officer. Yixdal was beginning to understand that humans fought differently than any enemy the Empire had faced. They didn't follow proper military doctrine. They didn't respect the established rules of engagement. Most disturbingly, they seemed to learn from every battle. On Earth, Dr. Carl Stevens was making discoveries of his own. As a former military historian, he had been studying recordings of alien battles and found patterns that other analysts had missed. "They're creatures of habit," he explained to Colonel Lisa Martinez during a briefing at Luna Base. "Look at these tactical recordings. They use the same attack formations over and over again. They respond to threats the same way every time." Lisa studied the data carefully. "You're saying they're predictable?" "More than that. I think they've never fought an enemy that forced them to adapt. Every species they conquered probably used similar tactics: energy weapons at long range, defensive formations, conventional military doctrine." Lisa felt a spark of hope. "So if we can force them to fight outside their comfort zone, we might actually have a chance," Carl finished. "But we need to be unpredictable. We need to do things they can't prepare for." This analysis was being shared with military commanders around the world. Human tactics began to evolve rapidly as field commanders learned to exploit alien predictability. Sergeant Tony Rodriguez had been promoted to captain after his success in defending Denver. Now he was training other officers in the art of close quarters, combat against technologically superior enemies. "The key is getting close," he explained to a group of newly promoted sergeants. "Their energy weapons are devastating at long range, but they're useless if you're standing right next to them." "How do we get that close without getting killed?" asked Sergeant Amy Walsh, a former police officer who had joined the military when the war started. Tony smiled and led them to a training area that had been built to simulate alien ship interiors. The same way humans have always gotten close to dangerous enemies. "We crawl, We climb, we dig, and we use every piece of cover we can find. The training was intense and dangerous. Soldiers learned to move through ventilation systems to fight in zero gravity and to use improvised weapons when their firearms failed. Most importantly, they learned to think like guerrilla fighters instead of regular soldiers. Remember, Tony told them, we're not trying to fight fair. We're trying to win. These lessons were being put to use in an abandoned subway station beneath Washington, D.C. A team of human commandos had discovered that the alien command ship was using a powerful transmitter to coordinate ground forces. The transmitter was heavily guarded and protected by energy shields that could stop any human weapon. Lieutenant Beth Carter, formerly the communications officer on Jake Morrison's ship, was leading the assault team. She had volunteered for ground duty after the Horizon's Edge was destroyed. The transmitter is in the center of the station, she briefed her team. 20 aliens guarding it, plus automated defenses. Our weapons can't penetrate their shields, and we can't get close enough to use Katie Bell's modified rifles. So how do we destroy it? Asked Private Mike Chen, one of Tony Rodriguez's former students. Beth smiled. We don't destroy it. We capture it. Her plan was audacious even by human standards. Instead of attacking the alien position directly, her team would dig through the abandoned tunnel system to emerge directly beneath the transmitter. They would use climbing gear to scale the station walls and drop down behind the alien guards. Once we're inside their perimeter, their shields won't protect them, Beth explained. We fight them hand to hand and take control of their equipment. The assault began at midnight. Beth's team crawled through maintenance tunnels that hadn't been used in decades. They emerged from storm drains and elevator shafts throughout the T station, surrounding the aliens before they knew humans were present. The battle was brutal and close. Human soldiers fought with knives, clubs, and their bare hands against aliens armed with energy weapons. But the confined space of the subway station negated most of the aliens' technological advantages. Private Chen killed his first alien by tackling it off a platform onto the electrified train tracks below. Sergeant Walsh used a fire axe to destroy an alien's weapon before finishing the fight with a combat knife. When the battle ended, 12 humans and 18 aliens were dead, but the transmitter was in human hands, along with 3 alien prisoners, who would provide valuable intelligence. Carter to all units, Beth reported. Package secured. Alien coordination in this sector has been disrupted. Similar raids were taking place in cities around the world. Human forces were learning to turn their enemies' technological superiority into a liability by forcing close-quarters combat in environments where advanced weapons couldn't be used effectively. Engineer Katie Bell was working around the clock to reverse engineer captured alien equipment. Her breakthrough came when she realized that alien technology was designed for efficiency, not durability. Look at this power cell, she showed Dr. Stevens. It's incredibly advanced, but it's also incredibly fragile. One hard impact, and the whole thing explodes. Are you saying we can use their own power sources as weapons? Better than that, Katie replied excitedly. I think I can modify our— 1 month into the war, Strategic Marshal Kethmore stood before a holographic display showing the battlefield situation across Earth. Red zones marked areas under alien control. Blue zones showed human resistance. What disturbed him most were the purple zones, areas where the situation changed so rapidly that their computers couldn't keep track of who was winning. Explain this to me, he demanded of his intelligence officer, Sub-Commander Jixnall. How can a species control territory? 1 hour and lose it the next? Jixnall looked uncomfortable. Sir, the humans don't appear to view territory the same way we do. They retreat from positions we think are important, then attack positions we consider worthless. Their strategy makes no sense. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans weren't fighting for territory. They were fighting to kill aliens. Every human commander, from General Williams down to Sergeant Walsh, understood that this was a war of extermination, not conquest. Colonel Lisa Martinez had been promoted to general after her successful defense of Luna Base. Now she was coordinating resistance operations across the entire planet from her underground command center. "Forget about holding cities," she told her commanders during their daily briefing. "Cities can be rebuilt. What matters is killing as many aliens as possible and capturing their equipment." This philosophy was being demonstrated in Detroit, where Captain Tony Rodriguez was leading the most successful human counterattack of the war. Instead of trying to retake the city, his forces had surrounded it and turned it into a trap. "Let them have the downtown area," Tony explained to his officers. "We control everything around it. Every supply convoy they send gets ambushed. Every patrol that leaves the city center disappears. We're not fighting for Detroit. We're using Detroit to kill aliens." The Zephyrian forces in Detroit found themselves in an impossible situation. They controlled the city center, but they couldn't leave it safely. Human attacks came from every direction, often from positions that seemed impossible to defend. Sergeant Amy Walsh had become an expert at fighting in urban ruins. Her squad specialized in what they called building jumping, using explosives, and climbing gear to move between skyscrapers without using the streets below. "Remember, gravity is our friend," she told her team as they prepared to attack an alien observation post on the 40th floor of an office building. "They expect us to come up the stairs. They don't expect us to come through the window from the building next door." Her team used rocket-propelled grappling hooks to cross the gap between buildings. Within minutes, they had surrounded the alien position and eliminated the guards with knives and clubs. The aliens never had a chance to use their advanced weapons. What made this attack particularly devastating was that the humans didn't just destroy the observation post, they captured it. Engineer Katie Bell's modified equipment allowed them to monitor alien communications and coordinate attacks on other positions. Similar tactics were being used around the world. In Tokyo, human forces had turned the subway system into an underground highway that allowed rapid movement beneath alien-controlled areas. In London, resistance fighters used the ancient sewer system to appear behind enemy lines without warning. But the most shocking development was happening in space, where Captain Jane Cooper had done something that no civilized species would consider. She had deliberately damaged her own ship to make it more effective in combat. "Remove all the safety systems," she ordered her chief engineer, Lieutenant Danny Brooks. "Strip out the emergency bulkheads. Get rid of anything that's designed to keep us alive if the ship is damaged." Danny looked horrified. "Captain, if we take a direct hit, the entire ship will explode instantly. There won't be any survivors." "Good," Jane replied coldly. "That means more room for weapons and fuel. If we're going to die fighting these things, let's make sure we take as many of them with us as possible." The modified ship, rechristened the Vengeance, was a floating bomb designed to cause maximum damage to enemy forces. Jane's tactics were simple: get close to alien ships and detonate everything at once. "All crew members understand the mission," she reported to Earth Defense Command. "We're not expecting to survive this engagement, but we should be able to take out at least 3 enemy vessels." This kind of thinking was spreading throughout human forces. Soldiers, sailors, and civilians were embracing a level of violence that shocked even experienced alien warriors. Lieutenant Beth Carter had become something of a legend among human forces. After capturing the alien transmitter in Washington, she had volunteered for every dangerous mission available. Her current assignment was leading a team of ship hunters who specialized in boarding alien vessels in space. The key is surprise, she explained to her hand-picked team of former police, officers and military specialists. They expect us to attack their ships from the outside. They don't expect us to cut through their hulls and fight them inside their own vessels. Using modified mining equipment, Beth's team could cut through alien hull materials in minutes. Once, inside, they would fight through the ship's corridors using weapons designed for close combat in confined spaces. Remember, their energy weapons are less effective inside their own ships, she told her team before their latest mission. They can't use their most powerful weapons without risking damage to their own systems. The boarding action against the Zephyrian cruiser Kexathera was typical of human tactics during this period. Beth's team cut through the hull in 3 places simultaneously, dividing the alien crew's attention. They fought through the ship using grenades, shotguns, and combat knives. The aliens found themselves defending their own vessel against enemies who seemed to care nothing for their own safety. Humans would charge directly into energy weapon fire to get close enough for hand-to-hand combat. "Fall back to the bridge," ordered the ship's captain, but there was nowhere to fall back to. Humans had infiltrated every section of the vessel and were fighting with a ferocity that defied military logic. When the battle ended, the alien ship was in human hands. More importantly, the surviving crew provided intelligence that would change the course of the war. "They're terrified of us," Dr. Carl Stevens reported after interrogating the alien prisoners. "They've started calling humans the knife fighters in their communications. They think we're some kind of primitive death cult." This psychological advantage was being exploited by commanders like General Pete Williams, who had authorized the use of captured alien communication systems to broadcast propaganda. "Let them hear our soldiers singing," he ordered. "Let them know that humans actually enjoy fighting." The broadcasts included recordings of human forces celebrating after successful battles, Marines chanting while marching into combat, and most disturbing to alien ears, the sounds of humans laughing while fighting hand-to-hand combat. Fleet Commander Yixdal received these transmissions with growing horror. The sound suggested that humans found violence pleasurable rather than necessary. This was beyond his ability to comprehend. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're also detecting human music being broadcast on their military frequencies." "Music? During battle?" "Yes, sir. They appear to synchronize their attacks to rhythmic audio patterns. What the aliens were hearing was everything from military marching songs to rock music that human soldiers used to maintain morale during combat. To alien ears, it sounded like the soundtrack to madness." Engineer Katie Bell had made another breakthrough in reverse engineering alien technology. She had discovered that Zephyrian ships were controlled by centralized computer systems that could be disrupted by electromagnetic pulses. "If we can get close enough to their command ships, we can shut down their entire fleet," she explained to Admiral Frank Wells, who had been promoted to overall fleet command after the death of several senior officers. "How close?" Frank asked. "Close enough to touch them," Katie replied. "We need to physically connect our devices to their hull." This led to the development of human torpedo riders, volunteers who would strap themselves to modified nuclear missiles and guide them manually to alien targets. It was a suicide mission by any reasonable standard, but human volunteers lined up to participate. Lieutenant Rick Barnes was the first to test the system. "If this works, I'll be able to disable their flagship," he told Admiral Wells. "If it doesn't work, at least the nuclear warhead will cause some damage." The mission succeeded beyond all expectations. Rick managed to attach Katie's device to the alien command ship before detonating his warhead. The electromagnetic pulse shut down the entire alien fleet for nearly an hour, allowing human forces to destroy 12 enemy vessels. Rick Barnes died in the explosion, but his sacrifice had shown that even the most advanced alien technology was vulnerable to human ingenuity and determination. As the war entered its second month, reports were reaching high command that shocked even experienced Zephyrian officers. Humans were not just resisting, they were winning battles through tactics that seemed to violate every principle of civilized warfare. "They fight like the universe is trying to kill them," reported one ground commander. "They show no fear of death, no concern for their own safety. They attack positions that should be impregnable using methods that should be impossible." The war had been raging for 6 weeks when the first Zephyrian soldier surrendered rather than face human forces in combat. The incident happened in the ruins of Chicago, where Captain Tony Rodriguez was leading an assault on an alien supply depot. "Put down your weapons," Tony called out in broken Zephyrian, using phrases his team had learned from captured alien communications. "Surrender, and you will not be harmed." The alien soldier, a young Korth named Thexdal, dropped his energy rifle and raised his hands. When Tony's Marines reached his position, they found the alien trembling with terror. "Please," Thexdal said through his translator device, "do not let the knife fighters take me alive." Tony was puzzled by this reaction until he realized what the alien meant. Human forces had gained a reputation throughout the Zephyrian fleet as savage warriors who preferred close combat. The aliens had started calling them knife fighters or the blade demons in their communications. "We don't torture prisoners," Tony assured the terrified alien. "You'll be treated according to the rules of war." But Thexdal's surrender was just the beginning. Intelligence reports from around the world indicated that alien morale was collapsing. Entire units were refusing orders to engage human forces directly. Dr. Carl Stevens was studying these reports in his new role as Chief Intelligence Analyst. "The aliens are developing what we might call a phobia about hand-to-hand combat," he explained to General Lisa Martinez. "Their whole military culture is based on fighting at long range with superior technology. The idea of grappling with an enemy using knives and bare hands is literally incomprehensible to them." Lisa nodded thoughtfully. "Can we use this fear against them?" "We already are," Carl replied. "Listen to this intercepted communication." He played a recording of Zephyrian commanders discussing human tactics. The translation revealed deep psychological distress among alien officers. "The knife fighters do not retreat when wounded," one voice said. "They become more dangerous. Yesterday, one of their warriors continued fighting with 3 plasma burns and a severed arm. How do we defeat an enemy that becomes stronger when injured?" "They sing while they kill," replied another voice. "Their battle chants can be heard throughout our ships when they board us. It is the sound of madness." What the aliens were describing was simply human soldiers maintaining morale through traditional military songs and battle cries. But to species that had never experienced such things, it sounded like the behavior of demons. Major Alex Turner was exploiting this psychological advantage in New York, where his forces had started using captured alien communication systems to broadcast carefully crafted propaganda. "Let them hear our training exercises," he ordered his communications specialist, Sergeant Mike Chen. "Record our troops practicing combat techniques and broadcast it on their military frequencies." The recordings included sounds of humans sparring with knives, practicing unarmed combat techniques, and training with improvised weapons. To alien ears, it sounded like humans were constantly preparing for violence. "Sir, we're also picking up some interesting alien chatter," Mike reported. "They think we eat our enemies." Alex raised an eyebrow. "Where did they get that idea?" Apparently, they intercepted a conversation between two Marines discussing field rations. When one soldier said he was hungry enough to eat a Zephyrian, they took it literally. Instead of correcting this misunderstanding, Alex decided to encourage it. Human forces began leaving behind evidence suggesting cannibalistic practices. Carefully planted alien bones with knife marks, cooking equipment near battle sites, and other props designed to reinforce alien fears. The psychological warfare was having devastating effects on Zephyrian forces. Fleet Commander Yixdal was receiving reports of mass desertions and requests for transfer away from Earth. "Sir, the 4th Heavy Assault Regiment is refusing deployment orders," reported his aide. "They claim that fighting humans violates their religious beliefs about honorable combat." Yixdal understood their concerns. The 4th were proud warriors who valued courage and strength in battle. But they had never faced an enemy that seemed to enjoy pain and violence. Human tactics violated every principle of civilized warfare. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Beth Carter was leading the most audacious human operation of the war. Her team had captured a Zephyrian transport ship and was using it to infiltrate the main alien fleet. "Remember, we're maintenance workers," she told her disguised commandos as their captured ship approached the alien command vessel. "We're here to repair their communications array." The plan was insane by any military standard. Beth's team was using stolen alien uniforms and forged identification to board the enemy flagship. Their goal was to plant Katie Bell's latest invention, a device that would override the ship's computer systems and turn its weapons against the rest of the fleet. "If we're caught, they'll torture us for information," warned Sergeant Amy Walsh, who had volunteered for the mission despite having a family back on Earth. "No," Beth replied grimly. "If we're caught, we detonate the explosives strapped to our chests and take as many of them with us as possible." This was another aspect of human warfare that terrified the aliens. Suicide attacks were almost unknown in Zephyrian military history. The idea that soldiers would deliberately kill themselves to damage the enemy was beyond their comprehension. The infiltration succeeded beyond all expectations. Beth's team not only planted their device, but also gathered intelligence about alien fleet movements and weapon capabilities. When they activated Katie's override system, the alien flagship began firing on its own escort vessels. "Evacuate immediately," Yixdal ordered as his ship's weapon systems went completely out of control. "The humans have turned our own technology against us." But evacuation was difficult when the ship's computer was targeting the escape pods. By the time Zephyrian engineers regained control, 3 escort vessels had been destroyed, and the flagship was crippled. Back on Earth, engineer Katie Bell was working on her most ambitious project yet. She had discovered that alien ships used a standardized communication protocol that could be hacked with the right equipment. "I can turn their entire fleet into a weapon against itself," she explained to Admiral Frank Wells. "But I need to get close enough to their command ship to upload the virus." "How close?" Frank asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. "I need to physically connect to their main communication array," Katie replied. "Someone has to board their flagship and plug this device directly into their central computer." Frank looked at the small device in Katie's hands. It was about the size of a smartphone and looked completely harmless. "What happens when we activate it?" "Every ship in their fleet will receive orders to attack every other ship in their fleet," Katie said with a satisfied smile. They'll destroy themselves while thinking they're following legitimate orders. The mission to deploy Katie's virus became the turning point of the war. Admiral Wells assembled a task force of volunteers for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. The plan was to ram the alien flagship with a human ship, board the alien vessel during the confusion, and plant the virus in their computer systems. Captain Jane Cooper volunteered to pilot the ramming ship. Her vessel, the Vengeance, had been stripped of all safety systems and loaded with explosives. It was essentially a manned missile designed to punch through alien defenses. "All hands, prepare for impact," Jane announced as her ship accelerated toward the alien command vessel. "It's been an honor serving with you." The Vengeance struck the alien flagship at nearly half the speed of light. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface and completely destroyed both vessels. But in the chaos that followed, Beth Carter's boarding team managed to reach the alien computer systems. "Package delivered," Beth reported as she connected Katie's device to the alien network. "Virus uploading now." Within minutes, the effects were visible throughout the alien fleet. Zephyrian ships began firing on each other as their computers received conflicting orders. The carefully organized formation dissolved into chaos as vessels tried to avoid being destroyed by their own allies. "What is happening?" demanded Strategic Marshal Kethmore as he watched his fleet tear itself apart. "The humans have corrupted our communication systems," replied his technical officer. "Our ships are receiving orders to engage each other." "Override the system manually," Kethmore ordered. "We're trying, sir, but the virus is adapting faster than we can counter it. It appears to be learning from our attempts to stop it." What Kethmore didn't know was that Katie Bell had programmed her virus with adaptive algorithms borrowed from human artificial intelligence research. The program was designed to evolve and counter any attempts to stop it. As the alien fleet destroyed itself, human forces launched their largest offensive of the war. Ships that had been hiding in asteroid fields and behind planetary bodies emerged to attack the confused and disorganized alien formation. General Pete Williams coordinated the ground assault from his command bunker. "All units, execute Operation Payback. This is our chance to end this war." Human forces emerged from their underground hideouts and urban strongholds to attack alien positions throughout the solar system. The psychological warfare of the previous weeks had left many alien units demoralized and unwilling to fight. 6 months after the first alien attack, humanity went on the offensive for the first time in the war. Admiral Frank Wells stood on the bridge of the newly constructed battleship Retribution, watching human ships prepare for their assault on the Proxima Centauri system. The fleet that surrounded him would have been impossible to imagine at the start of the war. Human ships now carried hybrid weapons that combined alien energy technology with human kinetic systems. More importantly, they were crewed by soldiers who had learned to fight the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy and had won. Admiral All. "Ships report ready for jump," announced his tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park, who had been promoted after leading successful boarding actions against 12 alien vessels. Frank nodded. "Signal the fleet. Operation Homecoming is a go." The name was chosen deliberately. Earth was no longer just defending itself. It was taking the war to alien territory. The Proxima Centauri system had been a Zephyrian stronghold for over a century. Now it would become the first alien system liberated by human forces. The jump to faster-than-light speed felt different this time. 6 months ago, human ships had been running for their lives. Now they were hunting. Meanwhile, on the surface of Proxima Centauri B, Colonel Tony Rodriguez was preparing his ground forces for the largest human military operation in history. His regiment had grown from a few hundred Marines to over 10,000 soldiers, including volunteers from every nation on Earth. "Listen up," he addressed his assembled commanders. 6 months ago, these aliens thought we were primitive savages who would surrender after the first battle. Today, we're going to show them what savages can really do when they put their minds to it. The laughter from his officers was not entirely pleasant. Human forces had developed a reputation throughout the galaxy that mixed respect with terror. They were known as warriors, who would fight under any conditions and who seemed to grow stronger as battles became more desperate. Captain Amy Walsh, now commanding a battalion of urban warfare specialists, raised her hand. "Colonel, what's our rules of engagement?" Tony's expression grew serious. "Same as always, Captain. We offer surrender once. If they refuse, we kill them all and take their equipment." This policy had evolved from practical necessity. Human forces had discovered that aliens who surrendered often provided valuable intelligence about fleet movements and weapon systems. But aliens who continued fighting had to be eliminated completely to prevent them from calling in reinforcements. Dr. Carl Stevens had been promoted to Director of Alien Intelligence after his analysis proved crucial to human victory. His latest report was both encouraging and disturbing. "The alien empire is fragmenting," he explained to General Lisa Martinez during their pre-battle briefing. "We're intercepting communications that suggest several member species are questioning Zephyrian leadership." "Are they likely to switch sides?" Lisa asked. "Unlikely," Carl replied, "but they're becoming increasingly reluctant to engage human forces directly. The Korth Heavy Infantry regiments have essentially refused all combat assignments. The Villani scout units are deserting in significant numbers." What Carl didn't mention was the content of some of the alien communications his team had decoded. The psychological impact of fighting humans was spreading throughout the Empire like a plague. Alien soldiers were developing what human psychiatrists would recognize as post-traumatic stress disorder after encountering human combat tactics. Engineer Katie Bell had been working around the clock to prepare for the offensive. Her latest creations included weapons that could turn alien technology against itself and devices that could hack alien computer systems in real time. "The beauty of alien technology," she explained to her assistant engineers, "is that it's all connected. Their ships, their weapons, their communication systems, everything talks to everything else through standardized protocols." "Is that bad for them?" asked Lieutenant Beth Carter, who had returned to engineering work after losing her left arm in a boarding action. "It's catastrophic for them," Katie replied with satisfaction. "Once we crack their protocols, we can control their entire infrastructure. Their technological superiority becomes our technological superiority." The offensive began with a coordinated attack on 3 star systems simultaneously. Human fleets struck at Proxima Centauri, Wolf 359, and Barnard Star at exactly the same moment, using timing coordinated by captured alien communication equipment. The aliens were expecting another defensive battle where humans would fight desperately to protect their home world. Instead, they found themselves under attack across multiple systems by an enemy that had learned to use their own technology against them. Admiral Wells watched the battle unfold from his command ship. The alien fleet at Proxima Centauri had been caught completely off guard by the human assault. Their ships were designed for long-range combat against enemies using similar technology. They were not prepared for human tactics. "All ships, execute Pattern Delta," Wells ordered. Pattern Delta was a formation that looked suicidal to alien observers. Human ships accelerated directly toward the alien battle line, accepting heavy damage in order to get close enough for boarding. Actions. It was a tactic that violated every principle of civilized space warfare. Captain Jane Cooper's replacement, Commander Rick Barnes, was leading the first wave of assault ships. His vessel, the Vindication, had been deliberately designed to look like a damaged freighter. The aliens would see what appeared to be an easy target and move to capture it. "Enemy ships taking the bait," reported his tactical officer as Zephyrian cruisers moved to intercept the apparently helpless human vessel. "Good," Rick replied. "Signal the Marines. Prepare for boarding action." The Vindication's secret was that it carried 200 of Tony Rodriguez's best-trained soldiers in hidden compartments throughout the ship. When alien ships came close enough to board the apparently disabled vessel, they would find themselves facing an enemy that specialized in close-quarters combat. The first alien ship to dock with the Vindication lasted exactly 17 minutes before its crew surrendered. The second ship tried to withdraw when it heard the sounds of battle from the first vessel, but human boarding teams had already cut through its hull in 3 places. "This is madness," transmitted the alien ship's captain before his communication system was destroyed. "They fight inside our own vessels. They turn our ships into battlegrounds." Similar battles were taking place throughout the alien fleet. Human forces had learned to turn every engagement into the kind of close-quarters combat where their training and determination mattered more than alien technology. On the surface of Proxima Centauri B, Colonel Rodriguez was leading the largest human ground assault since the war began. His forces had landed at 12 different points around the alien planetary capital, using tactics that seemed to come from the ancient history of human warfare. "Remember your training," he told his battalion commanders over the radio. "These aliens have never faced an enemy that enjoys fighting. Let's show them what happens when they pick a fight with the species that invented warfare." The assault began with human forces emerging from landing craft that had been designed to look like civilian transports. The aliens were expecting a conventional military attack with obvious targets and predictable objectives. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Sergeant Mike Chen led his squad through the alien city using tactics borrowed from urban warfare training on Earth. They moved through buildings instead of streets, appearing on rooftops and in basements where alien defenders didn't expect them. "Contact front," reported one of his Marines as they encountered an alien patrol in a shopping district that had been converted into a military checkpoint. "Rules of engagement?" asked Private Danny Walsh, Tony Rodriguez's nephew who had enlisted the day after his 18th birthday. "Same as always," Mike replied, pulling out his combat knife. "Get close and stay close." The alien patrol never had a chance to use their energy weapons effectively. Human soldiers emerged from storefronts and alleyways, forcing hand-to-hand combat in confined spaces where alien technological advantages were meaningless. The psychological impact on alien forces was immediate and devastating. Within hours of the human landing, Zephyrian commanders were receiving reports of units that simply refused to engage human ground forces. "Sir, the Korth garrison is requesting permission to withdraw from the city," reported an aide to the alien planetary commander. "On what grounds?" demanded Commander Voxthill. "They claim that fighting knife fighters in urban terrain violates their warrior code. They are calling for orbital bombardment of the entire city rather than face human forces in close combat." Voxthill understood their fear. The Korth were proud warriors who valued strength and courage in battle. But human combat tactics seemed designed to make courage irrelevant. How could you show bravery against an enemy that attacked from sewers and fought with improvised weapons? The turning point of the battle came when Captain Amy Walsh led her urban warfare specialists in an assault on the alien command center. Instead of attacking the heavily fortified building directly, her forces used mining equipment to tunnel beneath it. "Remember, we're not trying to capture the building," she told her troops. The war ended not with a final battle, but with a conversation in the ruins of what had once been the Zephyrian Command Center on Proxima Centauri B. High Commander Vexathara sat across from Admiral Frank Wells in a damaged conference room, surrounded by human guards who carried weapons that looked primitive but had proven devastatingly effective. "I do not understand," Vexathara said through his translator device. "Your species should have been defeated within days. Our technology is superior. Our fleet was larger. Our weapons were more advanced." Frank leaned back in his chair, studying the alien commander who had once seemed so confident. "Technology doesn't win wars, Commander. Soldiers do. And humans have been fighting wars longer than any species in the galaxy." "But your weapons are crude," Vexathara protested. "Metal projectiles, propelled by chemical explosions. Bladed weapons that require physical contact with the enemy. These are tools of barbarians." "Maybe," Frank admitted. "But they work." Outside the conference room, the reality of human victory was visible everywhere. Zephyrian ships hung in orbit, with human crews aboard them. Alien soldiers worked under human supervision to repair damage from the battle. Most importantly, the survivors of the alien fleet were preparing to leave human space forever. Colonel Tony Rodriguez entered the room carrying a datapad with the final casualty reports. His uniform showed the scars of 6 months of continuous combat, and his expression was that of a man who had seen too much war. "Admiral, the final numbers are in," he reported. "We've lost 60% of our original military forces. Civilian casualties are estimated at 12 million worldwide." Frank nodded grimly. The human victory had come at a terrible cost. But it had been a victory, and that was something no one had expected when the war began. "And their losses?" Frank asked.